Welcome to the Streetwise Property Pulse, your resource for Ontario's real estate financing and investment updates, where we provide you with timely perspectives from leading real estate practitioners, answer your burning questions, and share with you valuable tips and strategies. This is Dalia Barsoum from Streetwise Mortgages. On today's episode, we are discussing the multi-residential investment strategy, a very popular strategy for investors who are looking to scale up their portfolios, as well as for investors who are looking to diversify their holdings by adding a stable asset class to their portfolio. It is my pleasure to speak today with Mathew Frederick. Mathew is a real estate investment mentor, and he's a veteran investor with over 29 years of real estate investing experience. Mathew literally invested in every strategy, including buy and holds, buy, renovate, refinance, developments, apartment buildings, commercial properties, storage units, as well as modular homes. Mathew, welcome. Mathew, tell us about yourself and how you work with real estate investors.
Hi, Dahlia. Thank you for asking that question. My first property I bought at 19 years old, but I was not an investor. I was an immigrant. I came to Canada when I was 7. I always wanted my own property, saved up lots, and by the time I was 19 years old, I was able to put my money down and my parents co-signed to get my first mortgage. Now, at that time, I was in the Canadian Armed Forces Reserve, so I was a soldier part-time, and at the same time studying computer systems at school. By the time I was 24 and a half years old, I actually ended up getting into investing, buying my own property. And by that time, I was a teacher teaching at a private vocational school. So the strategies that I learned from being able to see the world through a military point of view, at the same time, the communication skills I garnered from being a teacher, and then the systems work that I learned from computer systems, all three, I think, made me bold. And as you know, fortune favors the bold. When it comes to investing, first 3 houses, and then expanded to more buy, fix, sell, rent to owns, some assignments, and I got into commercial properties. So that's multifamily and strip plaza. Most of those, I'd say 90%, are owned with joint venture partners. I didn't have the money to buy those buildings, so therefore I had to go that route. And then I moved to development. So I'd say the largest subdivision I've built would be 113 houses. That's roughly a series of semi-detached and 1 single, and a 50-unit, 4-story condo building. And to tie it all together, what do I do in the daytime? Well, I spend some of my day asset managing my portfolio. Now, that's not property managing. Property managing is being down in the weeds. Asset managing is overseeing it to make sure that my revenue is going up, my expenses going down, so that therefore my NOI goes up. At the same time, I'm trying to make sure that each building has a good culture, a buzz, a reason why somebody wants to rent from me. And I also spend some time doing one-on-one mentorship, where I teach people how to find off-market deals, multifamily mostly, how to get JV partners. So that's a little bit about who I am.
Which markets have performed well for real estate investors who are investing in multi-residential properties?
So my thoughts on market performance. Well, I'll say this. I do have a scope that's a little bit different than most people, because currently I invest in British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario, so West Coast, East Coast. At the same time, I invest in Arizona, Scottsdale. I invest in Florida, Fort Myers and Cape Coral, as well as Belize. So I have a very big picture of what's happening in a lot of different places. What I'm seeing is a slight migration away from the downtown cores to most likely the suburbs. It's slight right now. It may grow. I tend to have people knocking on my doors right now asking to buy my multifamily buildings, probably 30% more than they were a year ago. And I find that I have tenants who are sometimes moving out of maybe downtown and coming closer to the suburbs, because they may have to go into work maybe 2 or 3 times a week as opposed to every single day, and some are working from home. But I was looking at it from a point of view where the market doesn't really affect me. It's my system in place that allows me to demand and control that market. I've always used an RI system. R is recession-proof, I is internet-proof. And if you came to rent from me, I would look at your obviously your application, but when I'm looking at your job, I'm saying to myself, is this job recession-proof or internet-proof? Jobs that if a recession came along, they wouldn't knock it away, or if the internet came along and snatched that job away. And I've been using that for the last 7 years. So when this recession hit, or this pandemic hit, I was still okay. But now I have to add a new letter, P. So RIP, recession, internet, and pandemic proof, which means now I'm going to have to look at people's jobs. Are they essential services? That's important as well. So if I have stores, locations, and you want to rent a store from me, is your business RIP proof? If you're a person who wants to rent an apartment from me, is your job RIP proof? And secondly, I've always had a proactive information system in place for every single building. So therefore, the market has not affected me as much. And what do I mean by that? Every building has its own website. And on that website, I was giving information about COVID back in February 15th. At the same time, I was keeping my tenants up to date on some of the programs available for them. And we also did some consultation. I connected them to my financial manager to sit down and talk to see where they are financially. Should they make prepayments right now because they may have some problems downrange, or should they schedule some payments with me in the future? So I've always created, like I said, a buzz, a culture, and my tenants tend to be healthier than just random tenants who are left by themselves. And I found that a combination of having a good information system and also an RIP system, recession, internet, pandemic-proof tenants combination has helped me to survive in every single market. Now, in all those markets where I did not apply that, I actually inherited tenants. Now I have some problems with those people.
Have you seen an increase in vacancy rates or rent defaults due to the market conditions?
So my thoughts on vacancy. Well, I start off with inventory. To me, inventory is like a crystal ball. It helps me to predict the future. And for those people who are unsure of what I'm saying, what is inventory? Inventory is simply this. Right now in the city, if you were to stop putting all new properties on market for sale and just sold what there is right now, how long would it take to empty out the inventory? If it takes 1 to 3 months, that's a pretty hot market. If it takes 4 to 6 months, now you're beginning to slow down. From 7 to about 8, 9 months, you're beginning to really lose a bit of value. And from 9 months or 10 months to 12 months, you're crashing. I've experienced the 7 to 8 month window in Edmonton and BC over the last couple of years. Right now, if you look at Ontario, if you look at Toronto, if you look at condo sales, for instance, it's probably 4.5 months of inventory. Whereas the same time last year, perhaps it was about 15 days. So in that avenue, things are slowing down. I found, though, that looking at my properties, when it comes to vacancies and people paying rents, because of my information system, where I notify them, and because I also look for recession and internet-proof tenants, I found that February, March, April, we had everybody pay on time. And then when it came to May, June, July, about 10% of our people had a bit of a problem paying. We had to reschedule some of them. And August, September, October, I found that about 15% of our people were having problems. Taking a step back to May, June, and July, 10%, roughly it was a service industry and surprisingly medical retail, office workers. But then they got their jobs back. And when it came to August, September, October, I found it was still service industry, but now manufacturing. Now, who knows what's going to happen November 1st, because CERB is over, and let's see what will happen.
What challenges have surfaced for investors investing in the multi-residential strategy since March 2020?
If I were to look at challenges that I've seen, let's say since March in the multifamily world, I would definitely say financing is the biggest challenge. And financing in the timeline of it and also the effort of it. See, prior to March, I was able to get financing for strip plazas, so 8 units and below, and even mixed use, where you have some retail and above that you have apartments. I've had a hard time personally going to conventional banking and getting any kind of financing for strip plaza or mixed use. In fact, I have to look at a private lender, pay a little bit more money for that, and I may be locked into 1, 2, or 3 years. A lot of people wanted 2 or 3 years. Now, that's my experience. That's why you need a really good mortgage broker. Now, when it comes to multifamily, I'm still getting it financed. But what took me 21 days to get an approval, and that was pushing it, now is taking between 30 and 45 days conventionally to get an approval. And when it comes to CMHC, if I were to go that way, looking at about 16 weeks, looking at 4 months to get a CMHC approval through multifamily. So this is why it's so important that if you're looking to buy multifamily, 4 months before, your JV partners have to sit down with an excellent mortgage broker, look at the whole package. Where are you financially? How do you look? Do you have all your paperwork in order? Do you have your down payment money in the bank 3 months prior? It's important to consider that. Secondly, effort. I found that the banks have been tougher, dotting more I's and crossing more T's over the last 6 months. You know, we just closed a building, I think it was a 24-unit building. Unit number 3 on the rent roll was $1.50 monthly rent off versus their lease. And at the same time, that's not a big deal, but it was a big deal for the bank. And also, we get a lot of calls on insurance from the bank. And of course, they require a lot more personal documentation, a lot more than I've ever had to apply or use in buying property at this time. So I definitely say financing is a challenge. Got to have a great mortgage broker. And the time it takes to get financed and the effort is a lot more. It's a bit of a heavier lift.
Mathew, what opportunities did the current market environment present for investors who are looking to invest in the multi-residential strategy?
Well, that's a great question. And I will say to you that this year, 2020, I've seen the most opportunities in multifamily real estate that I've seen over the last 10 years. In fact, this year, my mentorship students and I, we've done 16 buildings. And that's from 6 units to about 34 units. 16 this year. Last year, we did 9. It's a huge increase. And why is that? Well, we had to make a few changes, of course. Now we don't look at MLS, multiple listing service buildings. We don't even look at pocket deals. And a pocket deal is when a realtor has got access to a property that he shows to a few people, private investors, before he shows it to the masses. In both cases, we found that it was just too much competition. Therefore, we started using more off-market deals. And again, that's what I specialize in. How do you find an off-market deal? In other words, how do you get past the gatekeeper, the property manager, the superintendent to get to the owner? Then when you do get to the owner, how do you talk to that owner? Which is very, very important. What tone do you use? When do you pause in your speaking? What words you use? How many sessions do you have? In most cases, it's 5 sessions that we have from meeting the owner to getting that property on the contract. Now, 5 sessions, but it took me 15 years to master that, which is important. Now, why are people, let's say, selling properties this year? There's 3 reasons. Number 1, a lot of these owners have owned their buildings for 15, 20 years. A lot of moms and pops, small owners, they've never seen 4 or 5 or 6 tenants all of a sudden stop paying rent. So mass, rent not coming in at one time really gives them a moment of pause. And that's one reason why some of them are selling. Another reason is because in the past 5 or 10 years, they've just not seen people so uptight, like stress in the building. People who are stuck at home, people who are upset, they can't go out. There's lots and lots of fights. Now, as a property manager, you come across the regular stuff. Like, we just had a building, there's a prostitute, and not the expensive type, is trying to ply her trade in the laundry room. Now, it's very easy to solve that. You shut down the laundry room by 9 p.m., put a camera in there. That's an easy problem to solve. The tough problems are people fighting each other because they're under high stress. And some of these landlords and property owners have decided, you know what, let me back away. The third is pretty much a consolidation. Sometimes bringing together a few good properties and letting go some of those donkeys they have, those properties that aren't that great, cause them a lot of stress. And it's really a life and death matter. Sometimes their partner or somebody they knew died, maybe because of COVID, and they have to rethink their life. So in life, you want to rethink what's happening, and maybe it's time to sell your building. So quickly, number 1, tenant issues for paying rent. Number 2, stresses from the environment. And number 3, a rethinking of your life. All 3 of those has caused 2020 to be a 16 property year for us. Now, of the 16 properties, let me close on this. 60% had to be assigned and 40% were financed because it's harder to get financed this year. But who do we assign it to? We assign these multifamily buildings to potential investors because it seems like lots of investors just want multifamily buildings. Some of them because they have about 12 houses and they want to go up to the next level. Naturally, it's multifamily, 6 to probably 16 unit. And some just like buying bigger buildings, having everything under one roof. And the combination of those two has caused us to assign away for 100,000 at a time to 150,000 most of our buildings. Whereas last year, in 2019, we did 9 buildings. We ended up buying 60% of them and closing, and we assigned 40% of them. So I think it's a great year. COVID has not bothered us. We just had to learn to do 80% of our work online, on the phone, and with Zoom, and of course 20% live.
Thank you very much for being with us today. When it comes to multi-residential property financing, the lenders look primarily at the performance of the building, and then secondly, at you as a borrower. What that really means is that the lenders look at the net operating income that the building generates to determine how much mortgage that building qualifies for. For you as an investor evaluating the building's net operating income, you have to remember that the lenders will always adjust the income and expense statement that you receive from the seller or the realtor. You may receive an income and expense statement that shows that the property is self-managed and therefore there is no expense for property management. However, when the lenders take that over, they will adjust for about 5% property management. Similarly, this also applies to vacancies. You may have a building that had really low vacancy rates, and on the income and expense statement, the vacancy is 2% or maybe 0 because the building has been occupied for years. When the lenders take a look at the income and expense statement, they will also make adjustments for vacancies, and generally speaking, they will take 5%. It is really important for you as an investor, before you make any assumptions around the type of financing you can get, is to contact a qualified mortgage broker who understands apartment building financing. What we typically do is we take a look at this income and expense statement, adjust it based on the lender guidelines, and advise you of the possibilities available to you to acquire the building, as well as the possibilities available to you if you were to increase the net operating income. That's it for today. To get notified of our new episodes, please subscribe and press the bell button. I will see you on the next episode.